Okay, let's look at customizing our jaw harp. And this is especially useful, I find, if you have a jaw harp that might have pokey ends of the arms. Let's talk about that. And they can be anything from morchang to vargan to drymba. It doesn't matter the type. If you have a nice, very clean, but very sharp angular edge near the end of the harp, you can run into this. Let's borrow Mr. Mouth. Now we'll take the sisiak. And I've noticed when I'm playing the sisiak, I love this harp. It's a wonderful, wonderful fat bass. But in the corner of my mouth, when I put it in there, and we're going to use Mr. Mouth here, when it's in the corner of my mouth, wherever it contacts my lips, as my lips wrap around it, it's sharp there. It's scraping on my lips. It's causing uncomfortability. I have a morchang here. It has this is a Mohan, extremely awesome traditional morchang. Has very sharp tips. It's been scraping a little bit on the inside of my mouth. So let's go ahead and get to know our jaw harp. First thing we're going to do is for our harp table, we're going to put down a piece of cardboard. Normally I would do this out in the shop, but I want to show a way anybody can do this. We're going to put down cardboard because we are going to be doing metal shavings. We're going to have a wood block here, and that's going to help to hold our harp. It's hard sometimes to freehand a harp, but if we have a block to hold it against, that's nice as well. Now, in the last video where we customized our grips, we were using full-sized files and cylinder bore hone stones. We're not going to be doing that today. What we're going to be using here is a needle file, and let's just talk a little bit about needle files. Here is a mill bastard file, and then here's the tiny needle file. Oftentimes you can get needle file sets, and you'll get a various assortment of needle files for a really low cost. So what this is referred to as a Barrett's file. If we look at it, it's not triangular. It's more of an oblong triangle. We're just going to draw on our wood block here. It's an oblong triangle like this. And what it has is a look at these top two portions of the Barrett file. These ones are a safe edge. There's no file. If you look here, there's no file teeth. This is a safe edge. This will not remove metal. On the bottom, the flat down here, there are a bunch of teeth. Now, what happens with a file edge is it's got a bunch of these little teeth. And as we drag this across metal, look at that. You can see a little shiny spot. I just took off, and we'll see if we can pick that up. You see it's at a very 90-degree angle here. Here it's almost at a 45. I just took that off. So the Barrett file is really nice. I love it for working on the tips of harps because we have two safe edges, because if I accidentally contact anywhere else with a safe edge, the trigger, it's not going to hurt it. Only the file edge is going to be taken off. So if we think about our jaw harp being in our mouth here and these being sharp, that means we need to do a little bit of filing on here. And the three things I'm going to be using in this video are a Barrett needle file. I think this came from a Harbor Freight needle file set. It's not a diamond file. I like the actual regular needle file. However, you can use diamonds. I find the diamonds to be a little bit coarser, it feels like. And then I'm going to use a trusty old piece. This is the same one from the last video I've used on a lot of harps. Piece of 100 grit sandpaper. And also a piece of wet or dry 1000 grit. You can get all the grits in between for really smoothing things up. I don't. I use file, 100 grit, 1000 grit. That's plenty well for my mouth. Now, here we have our harp. We have our wood block, and I could actually probably hold this. And a lot of times I'll hold the trigger back, and I'll take the file, there's the teeth, and we'll push, push, push. Because with the file, we push the teeth on the file. Let's just draw this out. If we look at this file, I know it's a bad picture, but if we look at this file, here's the two safe edges on top. If we turn it on its side, here's the file edge that would go up against the harp. If we look at it, it's going to have, the file itself is going to have teeth, little tiny, tiny teeth that cut the metal away. So when we take our file, we can hold and see the teeth there. We push, and then we lift off. push, and we lift off. And so you can already see I'm really starting to round that off, and that's because I'm pushing. Now, if we pull backward with our file, what tends to happen with the file? If we push, we're cutting metal away, but if we pull the file back, the teeth are going this way, the teeth start to lay over flatter, and eventually you'll have a bunch of flat teeth if you file on the backstroke. And you'll notice old files, some of them, people will have done that, whereas instead of nice file edges being visible, there'll be areas, and there might even be some areas on here where they laid over a little bit, where pressure was applied on the backside. Now, if you do it once, it's not going to really do it. It's repetition of pulling the file back, and then the teeth get laid over. But let's go ahead, let's talk about this. We're going to just wood block. This is just a piece of hackberry. I think it's 3 inches. I want to do the other side. So with it like this, I can have the trigger up. When my trigger goes down, look, I can hold it like this and file. And the file's not even really cutting the wood block much because we have the benefit of the safe sides. Now, if you have a file, you can, and I learned this from Mr. Sean Jones. If you have a file and you want to create a safe edge, you could always take this to a grinding wheel and grind a safe edge on it. I've done that with this file right here, this Mill Bastard file that I've got, this Nicholson brand, made in America. I've ground a safe edge on there. I took it and it had files all the way around. I ground a safe edge on there. So thank you to @Sean Jones, the great maker, for telling me about that, because you can customize your own files as well on a grinding wheel if you are careful. I like grinders wheels that you can slow down. So we've been taking off the corners. Let's take off the corners just a little bit further. See, I'm rounding around, but I don't want to touch the trigger. I'm rounding. This is just removing metal. And it can have a burr on it once you remove that. Now, if I wanted to take and do the front of here where it's kind of sharp, I could pull my trigger back, take my needle file, and just very, very carefully, don't contact what you don't want to do here. Don't contact the edges of your reed. Don't contact the inside of your embouchure blade area, which you want those to remain absolutely flat, no flat and true, but also sharp. So we don't want to dull those edges. What we're going to do is we're just going to pull this back a little bit, and careful not to tweak your reed to the side. Try to keep sideways pressure off that. If you have a crimp that may have a defect in it, that might be the thing that puts it over the edge. There we go. I got a little burr on there. What do I do about that little burr? I'm going to take my sandpaper here. And it doesn't matter what direction you go, because sandpaper is just basically heavy-duty paper that has little tiny bits of rocks glued to it. Your 100 grit sandpaper will have bigger rocks for bigger scratches for removing more metal. Your 1000 grit, as the grit of sandpaper goes up, that just means there's more pieces in a given, I think, inch. This might mean there's 1,000 tiny pieces in an inch. This might mean there's around 100. I don't know. Or maybe it's a centimeter. I don't know. But as the number goes up, the sandpaper gets finer, because you can't even see the tiny bits of rock, glass, or abrasive or hard surface that is on this 1000 grit. But let's take our harp here. Oh my gosh, we've been on for 8 minutes. It's been fun. And we can just go in both directions. So it's not directional like a file. We can just do a little rubbing. I can pull back. Boom. I can pull back. Smooth that off. Why don't we just take it a bit further? We're going to take our 1000 grit. We're going to go here. And that should help take the burrs off the edge, because when you file, you get kind of burrs. Let's just talk about when we file something. Say we file this off, you will get a microscopic little, it looks like hairs, they look like brushes on the edge of the metal. You'll get that where you file or grind. And we just want to use finer and finer grits, and I find that when sandpaper is wrapped around the finger, it has the tendency to round. It's no longer flat like a file, because our finger will give a little bit. Give it a little rubbings there. And then, of course, if you notice the edge of the trigger, on some harps, the edge of the trigger is sharp. You want a sharp edge all the way in the embouchure area, but when you extend to this area, the knee bend right here, this can, especially if your lips overwrap, this can end up contacting the lips. So this area is a little bit sharp here. I'm going to take my safety file here. Now, when you work on your harps, there is risk, but I know what I'm doing. So I'm not going to, I don't want to sand, or I don't want to, you could just use sandpaper on this. I'm going to start with the file and then end with the sandpaper. You can mess up a harp doing this. So know what you're doing. I'm going to pull back and I'm going to make sure, I'm looking at the monitor right now on the camera. I'm going to make sure I'm just staying on the edge there. I can dull that because this one is a very, very sharp edge. And this is where I really like sometimes using these stone files, because I can go bi-directional with this. These are best if you use them with a little bit of water. And you can see, boom, I just made that a whole lot more comfortable for my lip. I can go ahead and I can go right down it. If I was with a file, I'd be... And the wonderful thing about this is we got these two safe edges, so we can get right in there. We're starting at the edge. And now your reed material, it's spring steel. A good harp has good spring steel reed. You can see the burr that's occurring there. But a good harp has good spring steel reed. And that's going to be harder. Your frame's going to be easier. You can hear how the file kind of skids over it. If that happens, give it a little rubbing from the sandpaper. Because if your file's skidding over that, that means you're probably not biting into the metal as much. So you might benefit from a stone. There we go. And then we'll hit this side too here, right just where that knee bend is. Because if the harp is vibrating and this vibrating point touches your lip, zzz, if it's sharp, it's going to cause damage more quickly. If it's dull, it's going to be irritating and annoying, but probably won't hurt you. So it's good to have it a little bit duller. We're going to bring our wood block back. You can kind of buff the trigger a little bit. Feel around. Put the harp, make sure to wash your harp off because you are going to get metal shavings. You can see the metal shavings down here. You can see them on my fingers. You don't want to get the metal shavings in your mouth, so wipe it free and clear, or even hit it with some water. Hit it with some soap. Let's finish this harp up. Now, keep in mind, if you're doing this, it will raise the tuning very slightly. The more metal we remove from the trigger, the faster the reed can vibrate because the less weight that's on it, so the more the tuning will raise. So on your tuned harps, do this with extreme caution. Maybe only use very fine grit sandpaper. Bam. Like when I'm customizing my untuned harps, I don't care if they raise a negligible amount. If a harp's on a note, you may want to do this with caution or may need to retune it. And an area I like to hit, sometimes you have a little bit of burr running here and your trigger isn't as smooth. This is a good time to just take the 1000 grit. We don't want to remove any off this trigger. We want to remove a tiny fraction of a fraction. We just want to polish it. I like to polish. You can see the metal on my hands. I like to polish the inside of the trigger for outward strokes and go ahead and polish all the way around and also get the sides. You can grab it, just give it a thing like this. Next, wash your harp up and play it. If you feel a sharp area, say we have a sharp area. This is one I've noticed on morchung. Morchung come all the way to the end, nice and sharp. We can hit here to flatten the corners. But oftentimes our lips contact this front edge, these inside edges. Those are the hardest to get to, but if we have our Barrett file, we can push our trigger back or even pull it forward and get right in there. See, I'm just barely coming across the front, which those can be the hardest areas to smooth down. So hold, push, push. You can give yourself a little... I've really got a cough today. You can put yourself a little bit of sandpaper on there. Put the harp, clean the harp off, put it in your mouth, feel, make sure you're all good feeling. Sometimes on your morchung too, or any style of harp, if you have a little bit of roughness, it's nice to kind of smooth that down. We're going to get our trigger area here just with the 1000 grit. This trigger was very clean. Mohan are normally extremely clean forgings, but sometimes a little on the sharp and pokey side. Anyways, what did you think? A big thank you to the guest appearance by Mr. Mouth. All right, be sure to comment your harp questions down below. Love y'all. Harp out.